Mayor Reeves, Mayor Moeller.
Here, thank you. Can we all stand if you're able and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? All right, thank you, everybody. And now I'd like to ask the council for a motion and a second to adopt the agenda for today.
Move adoption of the agenda.
I'll second.
Can we have a motion and a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That passes unanimously. Do we have any council member announcements? Just wanted to, for those who didn't join us outside, we were able to raise in every month of April, we raised the Earth Day flag. So this month we'll be honoring Earth Day in the town of Yountville. And no other council announcements?
Maybe just a report of our meeting this morning, and that we'll do it again, the budget meeting
Okay,
in 2
go
weeks.
ahead.
Mayor, I just wanted to let the community know that we met this morning starting at 10 a.m. We are in the review of our second biennial 2-year budget. We started at 10 o'clock this morning and reviewed a portion of the general fund budget items. And we will again, 2 weeks from today at 10 a.m., take that up again and be focusing maybe primarily on CIP capital improvement projects. But it's a part of what we do. This is our second 2-year budget cycle. And you're all welcome to come to that meeting 2 weeks from now at 10 a.m. to be involved and make public comment on our next 2-year budget. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next item, we have a proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And Jennifer, would you like to come and meet me at the podium?
Hi, this is a packed house. Hello, Mayor and supervisors. My name is Jen Abram, and I am the development.
Yeah, I was going to give you the
Oh, sure. I don't know.
You're all set.
My first proclamation
Oh,
ever.
your first one.
Yes,
Well,
yes,
thank you for
yes,
coming.
yes.
So we've been giving it to news annually.
For a
So
while,
yeah.
yes.
So anyway, I'll let you make some
Okay,
comments
okay,
afterwards.
perfect.
Okay, that'd be
Okay,
great.
great.
All right. So this proclamation is for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, April 2026. Whereas news, domestic violence, and sexual abuse services provide safety, support, and advocacy to those experiencing sexual abuse. And whereas this year we honor 25 years of Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the shared commitment to end sexual assault, abuse, and harassment. And whereas rape, sexual assault, and sexual harassment harm our community, and that statistics show that over half of women and almost 1 in 3 men have experienced sexual violence, and that sexual violence disproportionately affects women, minors, and racial and ethnic minority groups. And whereas this Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we underscore that we believe survivors, that we believe violence has no place in our homes, our schools, or our community, and that we believe safety, dignity, and respect are not privileges, but they are rights. And whereas by observing April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we show that our town can lead with courage and is committed to supporting survivors and to preventing sexual violence across generations. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Margie Moeller, Mayor of the Town of Yountville, State of California, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the laws of Napa County and California, do hereby proclaim April 2026 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Yountville, and I call upon the entire community, not only in April, but all year long to take action and to end sexual violence. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. This is for you.
Thank
Would you like to say a few
I
words?
would.
Okay,
I
great.
hate my back is to everyone.
No, that's
but-
okay, because you're on the camera, so.
Okay, great. Thank you again. My name is Jen. I'm the Development Director at News, Domestic Violence and Sexual Abuse Services for all of Napa County. When I was growing up, and I'm sure the same for you, safety and early conversations focused on stranger danger. But what often isn't talked about is that harm is more likely to come from someone known and trusted, a teacher, a coach, a family member, a neighbor, and no one would explain to kids and adults how confusing it might be to try to find the words to describe what happened, or how terrifying it would be to speak these words out loud. So children and adults alike are left wondering, was it my fault? How do I tell someone? What will happen to my family? Will I have to talk to the police? What will happen next? And what if no one believes me? These questions and the fear behind them are a part of what keeps so many survivors silent for so many years. We don't want to face, or it's hard to face, how often sexual violence occurs in our community in Napa County, but it's here. And awareness requires honesty, and honesty requires courage. So this year's sexual assault awareness theme at News is We Believe, because those two words matter. For every survivor who comes forward, many more remain silent. But that's why having a confidential, safe space like News and our Assault Victim Services program, it ensures survivors are heard, supported, and believed. And we thank you. These proclamations are more than symbolic. They're a public commitment from all of our community, and we really appreciate this. We want to invite the community to come walk with us at Walk a Mile Napa Valley on May 3rd. It's at the end of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and it's just a space where we all are visible together as a community. So thank you for standing with us and for being a partnership in this.
Okay, thank you very much. So next we have is public comment, but this public comment is on anything that is not on today's agenda. So if you would like to come up, and what we're going to do is we have overflow that is in the locals lounge, and so we've given them comment cards so that they can make comments. And so they will be calling them up, but we'll be taking public comment for anybody in this room first. And during our we'll have a couple public comment sessions today. So during that time, I'd just like to, request that everybody, save any applause, booing, or, concerns, and, you can have conversations outside. So we'll just kind of respect of everybody. So with that, do we have anybody who would like to make a comment on something that is not on today's agenda? Yes, Debbie, you want to come up?
Hello, my name is Debbie Alterstar. I live on Larkspur Street. I actually wrote my council members today because I wanted to ask if we could do a proclamation in support of this event on the 16th. I left flyers.
Can you face the council, please? The cameras are on.
It's a woman who grew up here and went to elementary school here. Amelia Glazier is going to do a program. This is hosted by the library. It's translating poetry in a time of war. She studied Russian at Vintage High School, and she went on to become a scholar of Russian, Ukrainian, and Yiddish, and to translate poems in Ukrainian during the war. She has a couple of books that will be there, and other poetry in other languages. And this is a really powerful program, and she's also the daughter of our former late superintendent, John Glazier, who addressed this council previously. Eric may remember, Marjorie may remember, about the community center, about how the elementary school campus couldn't be a multi-use facility for the town. At any rate, she's doing amazing work. One of the things that she does, why I'd like to see a proclamation of Amelia Glazier Day on the 16th, on next Thursday, is because she teaches hundreds of STEM students at UCSD to translate poetry. Her translation classes are never popular, but hers is profoundly popular. And then the students go into the K-12 schools and they teach younger students to translate poetry. And many of these college and also elementary through high school students are the children of immigrants or their second language learners learning their first language aside from English, and it's really powerful. So what I was thinking is that I know that usually you do a proclamation, they come here, but maybe it could be like a high school graduation where the students come up, there's a moment. They don't get their diploma there. They just get an envelope, but the moment is at the high school graduation. And so I think this is amazing. We don't have our elementary school anymore, but we have alumni. We have connections we can make to our history. So I'd like to see if one of you or several would be available to introduce her. But if we could do a proclamation backwards, could give the proclamation envelope, proclaim the day, put it on our marquees, and then do the paperwork afterwards. That's my request. And I'm going to leave some flyers up here. It's really going to be an amazing program. We have a Ukrainian winemaker who fled Crimea pouring wine that he made, and Natalia Stacha. Natalia lived here in Yountville when she first came. We sponsored her family, and now she has a thriving business at the farmer's market. So she's going to give some taste of Ukrainian food. And like all the other events, I want to say thank you to Garrett and Sam and our town because you've partnered with our group Napa Valley to Ukraine to offer free events to nourish the community with culture and celebrate community and our connections. And I don't take it for granted, and you've been very kind about doing that. So thank you for your consideration.
Can you just leave any flyers with our town clerk? She'll take care of that for you. All right, thank you. Any other public comment that's not on the agenda? Do we have any in the, do we have any cards, Hillary, for anybody in the overflow room?
I have no additional cards, but I do see a hand in the
Okay,
audience.
yes, please come up. Can you come up to the microphone so everybody can hear you? Thanks, Alan.
Alan Tenscher. I'm not sure whether this is the appropriate time. I am curious. I have some general comments on where we find ourselves with the Commons project right now. So would this be the right time to make those comments, or perhaps within?
We have an administrative item 11A. That'd probably be the best time for that.
I'll do it then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for
You're very
clarifying
welcome.
that.
You're very welcome. So we have none in the no cards from the overflow commons.
No.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's move on. We have to the consent calendar. We have 5 items on the consent calendar. First, I'd like to get a motion and a second. We'll see if there's any public comment on our consent.
Mayor, I move approval of the consent calendar items A through E, and would request maybe for you just to give a report on the item C after our vote.
Okay. I'll second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? And did anybody have any public comment on our consent calendar? Seeing none, I will be happy. I was contacted by State Senator Chow a couple months ago, and he told me about SB 1040, which is a bill that he's working on that will put together a public-private partnership for veteran cemeteries. And since Yountville is home to the largest and oldest veteran cemetery, that's why he reached out to me. And I've been working with his staff, and the letter that was in our packet was a letter that I prepared, wanting the council to approve so that I could sign it and put it on town letterhead, and that he would be submitting it to a lot of the legislative committees that he'll be going through with that. And he's also asked that maybe I could, come and help testify once it kind of moves through, the state senate, and hopefully, if all goes well, it will be on the governor's desk maybe by August. So what this bill would do, it would, the state would match dollar for dollar. They would match $1 for every private dollar that was donated to the care of veteran cemeteries. And specifically, I asked if any donations that the public would make would go into a general fund, or could they be self-designated? So, for example, if somebody in Yountville or anybody in Napa County or anywhere in the state wanted to donate some money to the Yountville Veteran Cemetery, could they designate that? And he said yes, that was going to be included language in the law. So I thought that, to honor our veterans and our beautiful cemetery that we have up there for, so many veterans who have been there, since it opened in 1884, that it would be something that I thought the council would want to support. So that's why I put it together and put it on today's agenda. So thank you, everybody, for approving that. So, and I'll also be giving an update at the next time I go up to the Allied Council meeting and letting the veterans know too. So by then I'll be able to I'll read the letter up there to them that we all supported and let them know. So thank you. We have no guest presentations and no public hearings. So our administrative item is 11A, and we are going to be discussing if we would like to receive and file a report regarding certification and examination of a referendum petition against ordinance number 26-539, the common zoning ordinance, and provide direction to town staff regarding community engagement and options under the election code to either repeal or hold an election. So town staff, we have our town attorney going to lead this off for us.
Yeah, and I will actually do this along with the town clerk, who is the elections official for the town, which is true in every city, to maybe give the background on receiving the petition and then the back and forth with the county and that, and then I will go into the two options, which are the second part of the staff report.
And I'll just, let the audience know too. So after we receive your report, the council will be asking if they have any questions to our town staff. Those will be answered. Once we go through a couple round of questions, then I will call for public comment. And then after public comment, the council will then come back. We'll close public comment, and then the council will deliberate. So that's how that's going to go. So continue, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. To provide a little bit of background on the referendum, the town clerk's office received a referendum petition against ordinance 26539 on March the 4th, and then subsequently turned that into the Napa County Elections Office for review. It was deemed that there were a sufficient amount of signatures lending to the certificate of sufficiency that is before you today.
All right. Moving on to the next part. So the review, the role of the elections official in this process is to examine the petition to determine if it meets the requirements on its face. It did. The county has the voter rolls and has the voter records. That's why the county has to be the one to examine and to confirm the signatures. So the county did so. You'll see those as attachments to the staff report here. And then the clerk also adopted a certification and signed that and sent it to the proponents as well. So the effect of that is that the ordinance is suspended under state law. And then the elections code gives the town council two options. You can either repeal the ordinance in its entirety, or you can send it to the voters. If you send it to the voters, it has to be at an election that's at least 88 days away. If that number sounds familiar, it's because it is. Whenever you call an election, it's got to be at least 88 days out. That's so that there's enough time for the county to print out arguments and voter information guides and all the other things that are involved in proponents to do arguments and things alike. So the internal deadline for, as you know, there's an election coming on November 3rd. That election deadline, I believe, is in August, but I think the county deadline is actually a little bit before that. They set an earlier deadline to make sure that they have enough time to do things on their side. If you were to repeal the ordinance, it is a zoning ordinance. So just like every other zoning ordinance that the town considers, it needs a recommendation from the ZDRB. That requires 20 days notice of a public hearing. That's true for all zoning ordinances since about a year and a half ago. It used to be 10, now it's 20. Once the ZDRB makes a recommendation, we would then set it for a public hearing in front of you all. There's a 10-day notice for that. You would then introduce the ordinance at one meeting, and then at a second meeting, you would adopt the ordinance, and then the ordinance would take effect 30 days after. I know that sounds like a long process, but that's what you do for every zoning ordinance, and this is a zoning ordinance. So that's the process you would go through to repeal the ordinance. Should you give that direction, staff would proceed under that. If you give direction to send it to the voters, we would add this to the call of the election, which is going to be adopted in, I might look over to the clerk, probably in June, might be later June, early July, depending on what the county asks for. But in every even numbered year, including this year, you call an election for your general municipal election. And sometimes you put measures in front of the voters. Sometimes that's a GAN limit. Sometimes that's a tax. In this case, you might put this in front of them. So if you did that, we would put it in that same resolution. You'd call an election at the same time, and then this would be on the ballot at the November 3rd election. Both are allowed. I will say for the suspended ordinance piece of this, the ordinance is suspended until one of these two things happens. Under the Elections Code, if it is repealed, the town cannot adopt the same ordinance for 1 year after that. And similarly, if it goes to the voters and the voters reject it, you cannot adopt the same ordinance for 1 year after it is rejected. But that does not prevent you from adopting a different ordinance. And this process has not suspended your legislative authority generally, or your authority to plan or contract. It has suspended this ordinance, this specific ordinance, and that's the process we're talking about now. I will pause right there and happy to answer any questions the council has.
Okay. Councilmember McKee, you're.
That might be me, or do you?
Oh, well, okay. We weren't going to use these because it is kind of confusing. So what? Okay. Why don't I just go left to right on anything that goes to the council? Would you like to start?
So I have three questions. One is, I noticed you did mention the equal dignity rule, and you reiterated that, so that you said basically all zoning ordinances must go to the ZDRB for an advisory, and I only use the word advisory because ultimately the council makes the decision.
Yes.
Okay. Is that a, in the government code, or is the equal dignity just a general rule? How does that work?
Yeah, so two different concepts, so I'll take both of them. It is state law that requires that your planning agency make a recommendation to you on a zoning ordinance before you consider it. And your planning agency is the ZDRB. Some cities have a planning commission and a design review commission, and they do it separately. You've combined it into a single one. So your ZDRB is your planning agency, and before you can adopt a zoning ordinance, your planning agency has to make a recommendation to you. And then you consider that recommendation, and then you take action. So the reason why it needs to do that is because state law says you need to do that. The equal dignity piece is, you can't repeal an ordinance with a resolution, for example, or you can't pass a law by motion, right? An ordinance has a force and effect of law, and this zoning ordinance is a law. So in order to repeal a law, you need to pass a law. That's the idea.
So my related question to that is, I do understand what you just said, but is this not perhaps a different situation because basically of the referendum and it being a binary choice? So we're basically, what the zoning board would be weighing in on, essentially, if they said, no, we don't think you should be rescinding the ordinance, what they're basically saying is you need to go to the vote in November. And does that not put a little different perspective on it? Because basically it's not just rescinding a zoning ordinance, it's basically saying we're advising you, you need to go to an election. Because those are only two choices. If they say don't rescind the ordinance, that's our advice to you, we basically allowed them to tell us, not that we have to follow it, but so that's my question. Is this not a little different question we're putting in front of them than your normal, so that would be my question.
You don't quite see it that way. I see what you're saying. I don't think we would be clear we're not asking the ZDRB to opine on whether or not
even though
it's an
the
election.
implication is if they say don't rescind it, we have to go to election, right?
Well, no, you don't, actually, because
what could we do?
they're making a recommendation to you, right? So
Right, I know,
would,
we could ignore it.
Yeah, so the ZDRB, we're going to ask the ZDRB, what is your recommendation to the council on the repeal? That's the question, right?
Okay,
And then
so
the
I get
ZDRB
what you're saying. You
Yeah.
don't see it differently then because of the different
Right.
complexion. And then my final question, it goes to what you're going to say, and then I will stop because I know the public wants to speak. But your final statement that nothing that has been done in terms of the referendum and the suspension has any ability or does not in any way disallow the town from continuing to plan and enter into contracts with regard to the commons. So my question would be, if the zoning is suspended and we're back to public schools and public uses, is planning around housing a legitimate, given any planning that would have to do with housing and all that, just as a kind of non-lawyer, you would say to yourself, well, yeah, it doesn't seem exactly like it's suspended if you could continue with all those activities, regardless of the fact that the zoning's gone back to public schools.
Yeah, so two thoughts. There's current zoning on that parcel, and there has been. And so that zoning is half public facilities, half parks and playfield. The half that is public facilities does allow other uses by agreement and that the council could allow. So
But not housing.
I think housing could be allowed on that side, actually. It's
Under
any other
public-
use allowed by the town council is the way that
Okay.
current zoning. And that was analyzed in the last general plan with the last EIR.
Maybe you could just, and then I'll stop, because
Well,
I would
no,
be very
I-
interested, because people are concerned about continued planning and planning expenses. What actually is allowable, if it is true that for the public uses portion, planning for housing and that sort of activity, I mean, I get that planning for more recreation would probably fit with the existing zoning, but could you give us some sense of what is, not necessarily today, but what is allowable, because this is a real concern for the public.
Yeah, I know. And those letters are in the public record for today, of course, so we've seen those.
Well, so the council just needs your advice.
Yeah, sure. So you have current zoning that allows current things,
Right.
And so the town is allowed to continue to plan for things that are allowed, not just on
Under the
this
current
parcel.
zoning, and so I'm asking you, what is allowed? How much housing would be allowed, housing planning, all those sorts of things under the current zoning that's
What
been,
you mean, assuming the ordinance is repealed? Is that what
right,
you're
or
asking?
the paused ordinance?
That's a different question. We're not there yet. I mean, you have to look at.
Okay, well, that's fine. So we don't really know.
Well, yeah, well, I think these are separate issues, right? I think you're asking a very specific question is, can we plan for a very specific housing project?
Well,
and that's not really the question that I'm answering.
What was your statement about when you said there can continue to be planning and expenditures at the end of your statement there,
Well,
notwithstanding the pause,
So the town continues to own the parcel,
right?
right? There are uses that are allowed on that parcel.
Right?
So the town could continue to plan for uses that are allowed on the parcel. I think that's true.
Okay, and is
Just
housing
necessarily
one of the uses
true.
allowed? I guess that's my question.
On the public facility side, yes.
Okay, and then my only other question is, and then I'll stop. If you could, and maybe you have provided management with advice, but advice then that the community can understand what kind of activities are permissible under that exact question that I just asked.
I think I might have to have you ask it again. What is the question?
Okay, public uses, okay, current zoning. You said housing is a possibility, to be planning for that. Anything else? And is there any limit on that kind of housing?
Well, the limit is that you have to go through the process, it's got to comply with your general plan, and it's got to be approved by the town council. That's what the zoning code says.
Okay, so no more spending money on housing planning?
No, I don't think I said that.
Okay, well, I'm going to stop, Gary, because people aren't here to hear me talk. But any clarity we could get on that, I think the public, and there has to be some
Well,
clarity.
let me just be clear here on one other follow-up point there, because I kind of saw where you're going, and then there's some rustling to my right. So just to be clear here, there's two separate questions, right? I'm answering a legal question, which is what does the zoning code allow do you have authority under your municipal code and your general police powers to contract and plan for things? The legal answer is yes.
Yes,
You own the
and-
parcel, there are allowable uses.
I asked you what things can we plan for? And
Right, and I answered what the zoning code says. There's a separate question, which is what does this council want to do? And that is a question for the five of you, not for
Okay.
me.
But can you, would we be able to find out what the zoning code allows for us to be planning or our current management to be spending? Or maybe you're saying nothing should be spent or planning worked until the council says yes. Is that maybe what you're saying?
Well, we all take direction from the five of you, of course. Yeah, so the zoning code says other uses authorized by the town council by agreement. That's what it says.
Okay.
So you all would have to authorize it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
The next
Councilmember
one.
McKee.
My question was basically answered since it was pertaining to why does it need to go back to ZDRB, but you explained it in entirety, so I have nothing further. Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Councilmember Knight. Questions?
Thank you, Mayor. So maybe just to flesh this out a little bit in terms of the question that Council Member Tripp added, what the voters did, the referendum that was signed and presented to the town said basically, was to rescind the current zoning on the property, and that was zoning that we approved at our January meeting. So, if the question is, it seems to me, and I would be wanting to clarify that, but it appears that if we rescind the zoning for the commons, then we're really back to what we did for the last 2 years. We had a property that was zoned public facility, parks, and we planned for it, and we had public meetings. We invited the public to 1 million cups of coffee, and we talked about what would go on there. In essence, what the referendum did is it said it rescinds, or at this point it suspends. But if we vote to rescind, then we're just back to the same place we were, and then it's a question of the community or the council how we talk about and what we want to do on that property in the future. I think that's what I would hope that, and I do believe, I think that a vast majority of the residents support there to be different uses on this property, and so we would at some point be back to some type of conversation about what would occur on that property.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you would be going back to the previous zoning that was analyzed and put in place with the general plan that took effect in 2020 and was analyzed in that EIR. You'd be going back to the previous zoning. And to your point, whenever you are preparing for any kind of general plan or zoning code change, there's always a certain amount of planning that occurs before the thing happens. You've got to do CEQA, you have to draft the documents, you have to draft the ordinances. So yes, to your point, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember Reeves.
I would hope that this decision that we make today would not ignore all of the calls for more detailed information, more discussion, more work on what people think should go into this project. So the idea that this referendum is to stop the project doesn't ring true. I heard pause, I heard slow down, I heard a lot of things, but I didn't hear the stop. I heard, I'm for workforce housing, but that could be interpreted a lot of different ways. But I do think I heard a lot more comments of, I have specific concerns that I would like to discuss. I have specific worries about finances. I have specific questions about use. So I feel like the questions that are asked by Ms. Tripp are a little bit confrontational about what we're actually expected to do here. This council has been working with the community all along, and this referendum comes at a time when we were about to hear more information, and now we're at the point where we could ask for more information from staff and our consultants, but I think it doesn't do the community any service by saying, no, you can't do that. That's just my comment.
So I just want to make sure that we're all kind of hearing the same thing. So I'll kind of start back in the beginning. When we bought the school property, we did not change any zoning after we purchased the property until January of 2026. So in that time, we not only purchased the property, but as it was referenced by other council members, we did have a lot of public meetings. We drew up a big conceptual plan. We had enough drawings that we got estimates for how much it was going to cost. We engaged market research from BAE. We hired financial people who could tell us, where our revenue streams were that could pay for it. Then we unanimously approved the zoning change.
No, not unanimously.
Well, you'll have to check with the town clerk
Well,
on that.
I voted against it, so.
The next meeting you voted for it
Well, that
in the
was the
consent calendar, but you
yes.
approved it. It was unanimous.
Anyway.
Maybe I can stop and ask our lawyer. If on the initial vote I voted against it, and then it goes through the consent calendar, was the proper thing what was the proper thing to do, or how does that get read?
There's two different votes on every ordinance. There's a
Okay.
vote on the introduction, and there's a vote on adoption.
Okay,
To my recollection, you voted no on introduction, and you voted yes on adoption.
when it was on the consent. Yeah, okay.
So we did spend and allocated money, the council allocated money, to hire these consultants, engage the public. That was, wasn't 14 million. It was much, much less than that. And so now this referendum is before us to either repeal or to add to the ballot. So from what I hear from the town attorney, that, this is kind of puts us back to where we were. So anything that we might want to do or talk about or hire experts to advise us on would be just like it was on day one after we bought the property and started talking about what we do with it now. So is that a correct summary, would you say? All right.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, I am going to open it to public comment. Again, we'll take public comment from anybody in the room, and just, out of respect for everybody, if we could just hold all of our feelings. You can certainly have them. We all have feelings, but, I think it'll give us a nice orderly process. And then we're going to take 3 people at a time who've turned in comment cards that are in the locals lounge, the town clerk, and we have a runner, I think, who'll be bringing those people in. So that's how it'll go. And then I will close public comment, and so there won't be any more after that, and it will come back to the council for deliberation, possible action, and discussion. So that's how it's going to go. So let's start with who would like to come forward. So you just need to just state your name, please.
My name is Gary Jabara. I'm the owner of the estate Yountville across the street. Couple of things. First of all, welcome to the union boys that are in the back. My family's union. Greatly appreciate you guys being there. So thank you. On another note, I don't know if you guys know this, but when they pre-qualified the builders, half of the builders on here weren't union shops. And I think there's a non-union shop that was selected, or one of the finalists. So whatever gets built in this town that is financed intelligently and bid intelligently should be built by union labor. Okay? That's where I stand on that. I'm returning what was dropped off to the hotel for me, some design build entity interviews, because my request for information asked the town attorney to submit it to my attorney, not to have somebody who didn't identify themselves just drop it at my lobby front desk. So I think it
Attorney
came
Bell.
from the town. I don't know who it came from, and just do me a favor. This isn't anything personal. the formal request was made,
Yeah.
and I would hope that all the information would go to council, not just
Yeah,
be
just to
dropped
briefly
at the-
respond, and we won't count it against your time.
Okay.
To my knowledge, this did not come from anyone here or my direction. I will absolutely be communicating with your attorney, but
Okay.
I checked with staff before this meeting. and
Okay, I don't know where it came from. I'll keep it then if it didn't go to you, so I appreciate it.
It wasn't staff or any of us, and certainly not at my direction. We will be
Okay.
communicating
All
with
right,
your
thank you if you don't mind. I just want to keep some integrity in the process because things get lost at
And,
the
and
front
also,
lobby.
so do we. And so the reason why I'm responding is just here in the record. I don't want folks thinking that we're not. We're communicating with your attorney.
Oh, no, you've been great, by the way, and he's very thankful for your cooperation. So, okay, sorry.
And I assure you the clerk's office values process.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll keep that. My time will be quick. I just want to make sure that the town council has been copied with the 4 requests, Gary, that you were given by Patrick Gunn. I know the last request for information, we added town council members so they would be given, that was the second California Public Records Act. We added town council member names there so they would be shared, this document. Were the other 3 shared with town council?
Are you all right with me responding? Briefly, Mayor?
Please, yes.
Okay. There were 3 letters and 2 Public Records Act requests.
There was, I think so, yes. I think
Yes.
it's 2 letters and 2 public records requests, or maybe 3.
Yeah,
yes.
I think there was 3 letters. 'Cause
Yeah,
there's 1 in
correct.
March, 2 on April 1.
Correct.
And then 2 records requests.
Correct.
All of those documents have been shared with the council.
Fantastic.
And the ones that were public comment are included in the agenda today. So if any of the public is interested in what we're talking about,
Okay.
just go to the online agenda and you can look at those.
Okay, and then just for the public information, I'd just like to submit these to the city clerk for public consumption.
And those are the same letters?
Same exact letters, all addressed to you. And then, I think, Pam, maybe you sort of crystallized what I want to say here. Nobody doesn't want housing. Everybody wants housing. But nobody wants the process managed irresponsibly. Nobody wants anybody to assign a general contractor to a project when you don't have detailed drawings. I don't imagine the union boys would want to do design build. You guys want specs, and you guys build better than anybody. So I know what my family would do. So I also, again, I want to make sure that this town's way too small to finance something that's $90 million. And Margie, you throw the word around revenue too easily. That's called taxes when you're on this side of that's called taxes. It's not called revenue, it's called taxes. And so when you've got a loose set of drawings and you've got a loose set of specs and you've got unknown conditions, the guys in the back of the room know better than anybody that budgets change. And so I will do whatever it takes to make sure that there's a tight set of plans on whatever gets built on whatever site, and it's competitively bid, and that we have union labor build it. But this town does it responsibly. And there's not a never-ending, bottomless pit of tax revenue that you call revenue that can be taken from our guests and our residents in the form of sales tax and occupancy tax and property tax. It doesn't make sense. The vast majority of towns in the state of California, especially the ones our size, never finance them themselves. Never. This is an absolute anomaly. And if you haven't done your homework, you should. And so, as you know, the housing requirement for the town requires that the town rezone and make the construction of affordable housing feasible for a developer to come in and build housing, whether it's private residence or a developer or whatnot. And there's a difference between a developer and a builder. Builder doesn't have anything at risk, depending on the contract. Developer, finances the project and has all of the risk of return and ownership. So I would ask that the town, again, do a great job in considering the alternatives and make sure that we act responsibly and we do something intelligently based on our size, based on what other towns our size do throughout the state. We're not Los Angeles. We're not San Francisco. We're Yountville. And I think collectively the town can do a great job. And, You did hear, Pam, everybody say, we don't want to finance it because we can't afford it. Well, you also heard everybody say, stop and slow down because the process is broken. You also heard everybody say that there's been some wacky deals been given over there on the school site. So yeah, but I don't know if you have kids, but if you did and they overspent their budgets, you're not going to let them continue to spend and watch them and hope that they're going to change. You stop it, you take a big deep breath, and then you do it right. Okay, you don't just, let the wound continue to bleed. And if you do that, that's what you're doing. And I think if you vote otherwise, I think you're being entirely irresponsible. And there's recalls that will happen.
Mayor,
Yes.
I would like to have staff reply a little bit to some of the misinformation that was just presented about property taxes being involved and where does TOT come from, and the fact that union shops are or are not involved in any selection that we make. I think that was in our requirements that there be union agreements. So if you could elaborate on that.
Mayor, do you want me to?
Yeah, briefly.
Sure. Well, I mean, speaking to the union issue, through the RFP process, there was 8 initial applicants. Those were then shortlisted to 4. Of the 8, only 1 was not a signatory, as the union shop would understand that term, so signatory to the carpenters. The 4 that were shortlisted were all signatories. So all that were considered through the shortlist and the RFP process were all signatories to the carpenters union. And then as it relates to funding sources and property taxes, what was presented on February 17th was simply the Measure S revenue source, which is a 1% surcharge on hotel rooms designated for workforce housing, and the existing debt service on the seismic retrofit of this building. So that was in essence, funding source that looked at bonding capacity, which looked at the the capacity to then construct phase 1 of the vision. But as you know, we never got into the conversation beyond that. There was other alternatives in the BAE report that looked at tax credit financing, that looked at partnership opportunities with developers, et cetera. But what was analyzed in the pro forma was simply those 2 funding sources that were available that had nothing to do with property tax, had nothing to do with any additional taxes beyond what the general fund and what the town budget currently supports.
Okay. Next, do we see somebody who'd like to come up? And if you can, just face us, just because there's so many people who are watching on television, when you turn around, we can't capture that.
I completely understand.
Okay.
First and foremost, thank you for your time, Mayor, and thank you for your time, council members. My name is Jesus Mendoza, and I'm a field representative for the North Coast States Carpenters Union. I'm actually from Napa. I went to school here, Redwood Middle School, Napa High. My wife is from here as well, Redwood Middle School, Vintage High, and she actually works for a very historic winery here in the valley. Her cousin is actually one of the winemakers for one of those wineries, and I have an uncle who's a pastor here in this town, so I love this town, and I completely understand your concerns. But having worked here in town, I've worked for Michael Curello at Bottega, having worked for Thomas Keller at Bouchon. I had a good job here, and I had a great opportunity, but I didn't have a career. I didn't have benefits. I didn't go through an apprenticeship program where I learned how to work and how to, be efficient with my skill set. The Carpenters Union gave me that. The Carpenters Union gave me a career, it gave me value, and it gave me opportunity, which is why we encourage that you guys do pass this project and that you guys do choose a signatory contractor, because with this signatory contractor, not only do they bring trained and skilled labor, they're helping improve the overall community here in Yountville, right? As they're as construction workers are coming in, they're going to the gas pumps, they're going to local restaurants here, and not just that, but they get exposed to the beautiful wineries and restaurants that exist in Napa Valley, right? As these guys are making money, they bring it back home, they tell their families about all the beautiful things that we have here in the valley, and now we have more tourism coming in, right? As I know, as having my wife, working in the hospitality industry, she tells me all the time that tourism is kind of like hard right now due to the current things that are going within this beautiful country. And I can assure you that the Carpenters Union will bring attention to the city of Yountville, will bring attention to the restaurants that currently exist here, these renowned chefs that we have, that not a lot of people know about. And so as a proud union member and as a local of the Napa Valley, I urge you guys to pass this as I've never had the opportunity to work in this beautiful valley, even though our contractors are currently building the wineries that exist here, as Wright Contracting is doing a lot of work for the current wineries that we know today. So we're here. We may not be seen in the public eye, but the union is here, bringing you these buildings and these beautiful schools that our kids go to. So again, if you guys do pass this, I encourage you guys to use a signatory contractor, as they will bring a safe workforce, a trained workforce, and a workforce that loves this country. So thank you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alan Tencher, nice to speak to you again, and nice to see all of you. Thank you for your service. I know this is a challenging time, and I'm hoping that we use this opportunity with civic engagement to try and move this project forward. But I think at the same time, we're left with a binary choice. And that means I think that we have an opportunity to pivot and listen to what is being expressed as concerns, and try and incorporate those parts which are incorporatable to change what elements of the design need to be changed so that we can do what Measure S gave us as a mandate, and that is to use some of the generosity of the visitors who come here to build housing for workers. Now, whether we build it or somebody else builds it apparently needs to be reconsidered, but that shouldn't have us stop our vision. So as part of this reset, I think we need to think about several things. One is, unfortunately, there has been, through the process that's worked so far, a great deal of mistrust, unfortunately, generated. And so you've heard me say before, I'd like to let the process go. I don't think we're here anymore. So I think to reset the process, we may have to hopefully not begin at the beginning, but instead begin with what we know and what we hear. We're much more informed than we were 2 years ago. But we may have to bring in a neutral facilitator to move the project forward because, unfortunately, of the lack of trust. In addition, we may need independent financial guidance. Okay. Please, let's just be respectful. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But we're going to have to work together. Absolutely. If we're going to get forward, we're not all going to get what we want if we're going to build something that's productive for everybody. So we need, and you've heard me say this to you for almost a year, we need real market research. We need to understand what our employees can afford, and we need to understand what unit mix best serves their needs. In addition, we may need to think broadly about the timing. It may need to be much slower if we're going to provide significant funds to this rather than a developer. We may need to have a very long time horizon. In addition, we may need to think about uses other than simply workforce housing to make this affordable. I shared with you this morning the fact that between 120 and 170 wineries in this valley are not economically viable right now, and over the next 3 years are likely to see significant changes in that. So I've already said I think compromise will be required, but I think if we are willing to engage, and this is great to see this many people out willing to talk about where we want to go with this. So I would hate to see the process stopped, and I don't think this binary choice stops you. You can re-engage the process, you can rescind the ordinance, because it may not be relevant zoning for what we end up with when we see what's economically viable. So thank you again for your service. It's a hard job. I wouldn't want to do it for the world, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. Yes, please come up.
Hi, Jeff Vernig. So I'll be brief, bright, and gone. The budget I looked at called for a deficit of $4.1 million when the completion of the project, and I know that's an estimate, but typically estimates go further than that. So how does that get monetized? The loss for each year. Do we have any idea?
Maybe you can just go through your comments, and I'll refer questions to the staff. Is that your only comment?
I personally, I feel like that for the size and scope of the project, that's a tough place to put what you want there. But monetizing it to make sure that we're maybe just breaking even, maybe we could lose a little, but $4.1 million a year for a small town, I don't think is appropriate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So staff.
You know,
Staff, could you just generally address that? Because, you know, at our last meeting, we all
Mayor,
heard.
can I make a comment? I don't really agree with that, staff giving off-the-cuff answers to really tough and detailed questions that many of us have been asking for a long time. So I really feel, and you can vote me down and Gary can say no, but this is about the public comment, not about off-the-cuff answers that will, this is not the time to get into the finances. If someone has it wrong, let's get into it and get into it right and complete. And so I will just stop. But I object to that, this kind of dialogue with information. I've already heard stuff today that is just not correct and coming from staff. And if we're not going to have a for real discussion and really understand the information, then I would think it better just to hear the public comment, which
Gary,
is what this is, public comment time.
So, Gary, would you like to reply, and then I'll get some consensus from the council.
Yeah, so 2 comments on that. The first is, this is public comment on this agenda item if it's related to this decision, right, which the decision on the agenda is whether or not to repeal or to place this on the ballot. This, of course, is related to the project generally because the ordinance was put in place to support a particular thing, and so it is related to the broader issue. So it can be part of the discussion if you choose to, and staff can respond to those at the council's direction. This is not general public comment, which of course has more restrictions because that's about items that are not on the agenda.
So, Gary, if I was to hear something that someone just said that was incorrect on the part of town management in a response to something, and am I allowed to question it further, or do I just need to sit with it? Because then it will get long, but I don't feel comfortable necessarily just sitting with it.
Well, every council member has a right to have comments and ask questions, right?
What would the proper time be? After the person gives the information out, or down the road, or?
Yeah, well, it's governed by the town council manual on that process and the chair and how that process goes. So I will leave that to you all to have a discussion about how questions and debate occurs.
Okay.
And I would just add, in my experience and having done, over 1,000 public meetings, generally speaking, I defer to the presiding officer or the chair in terms of responding to public comment. I'm not interested in getting into a dialogue or providing any new information. So as it relates to the finances, I will simply just say that the BAE report, which is on the record, is what should be reviewed. What I mentioned in my comments is there was many options in that report, and there was only 2 scenarios that were analyzed. So I think you have to read the whole report, and I'll let the report stand for itself.
Okay, and then I want to make a comment about what you said about that, especially about the options for other types of funding, which is a thing I have been asking about, and I have detailed notes, emails to you since last summer, why we didn't have any partners. There was 1 half page in the BAE report about options for other funding that pointed out we could possibly get $10 million if we used tax credit funding. That was 1 half page. After the entire workshop was over, I was finally able to ask the gentleman from BAE, is there any more information on how that works? And he said basically no. So to say that that was analyzed in the BAE report is just not correct. There was no detailed analyzing how tax credit funding could work, how partnerships could work. So I just feel that that's not, that was all that was in there, was 1 half page.
Yeah, and I would respond by saying I didn't say there was detailed analysis of other options. I said there was options presented, and there was 2 scenarios analyzed. And I think the other important point is that was a study session where it was presented for the first time with the hope to get direction so we could come back and provide further analysis based on the consensus of the council.
And then finally, I would just point out the other question that Melissa, the KNN finance person, and she said this to me because she was here in December. I said, we need something other than a static analysis. In other words, what happens when revenues go up and down. I said it in December. She came back in February. It was still a static analysis. I said it to her then. She goes, I heard you. We just haven't done it. So this is an answer to your question as to how patient and long people should wait for information. Asked it in December. She heard it. She says in February, still not giving it to you. I didn't understand why. This is not rocket science. We just wanted an analysis of what did the project look like if revenues go, taxes go down 10%. Anyway, so I'm just going to start saying what I have observed. And that is what I observed. So you're right. It was not a complete analysis. We have never got a complete analysis of what money would be available if we were to do a variety of ways that people do these projects. Anyway, so I'll stop there. But I think we need to stop saying things are what they aren't, because I think that is very misleading. So
okay, anyway. So I will. So I'm going to poll the council. So the question to the council seems to an up and down vote, but feel free to make a comment. If somebody from the public asks a question, do you feel it's appropriate or not appropriate to ask staff for a brief reply if a question is asked? You want to start?
Mayor, I think it's a part of a good conversation with the community. Public comment on an item like this is a conversation we're hearing from them. People have their opinions. We are not restricting someone's viewpoint, but when someone takes a position and that, for example, there was no union representation in the proposals, I think the community needs to hear the full story. And so it's just a part of good communication with the community that we be sure, and it's not confrontational. It's a conversation, so we all can we can all hear what we need to hear. And so I say and from my experience over a long period of time, we have staff respond to very few comments. They do respond when there's information that needs to be shared with the community or with the folks here. So, enough said.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reeves, thoughts?
I also agree with Eric. I think that there are a lot of different ideas floating around in the community, and that in order to actually have a dialogue, we need to all be working from the same information.
Councilmember Tripp, question. That's response to the question.
Oh, I was just nodding. We all need to be working from the same information. I agree, and I'm fine with as long as we try to be as clear and accurate in our answers. And if we don't have the answer, we being the town and its management, we state that and not put something in a conclusory fashion to just shut down a concern that gets raised. So that, but yes, I agree with what Eric said. It's part of a good dialogue.
Councilmember McKee.
I think we're at the point where we're all seeking clarity and more information so that we can all be on the same page. I think this is enlightening for all of us. We want complete understanding, so I think giving the staff an opportunity to answer is good. And the more we can get to the same understanding, then we will have a place to start this project from. But until we get there, it's too polarized, and we're never going to get to the same place to be able to move forward. So let's do it positively.
All right, thank you. And so I'll make those other four comments unanimous. I'll also control the conversation, for better or worse. That's my job as mayor, one of many, to run the meeting. So we'll make sure that these public comments are mostly for public comments. If I decide that a comment is a question or needs to be addressed by staff, I'll ask staff. If there's too much back and forth, I will cut that off. So those are the rules. So let's continue. Who would like to come up next? Yes, please.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Ruben Galvan. I'm a field representative for the North Coast States Carpenters Union, Local 751, which covers Napa County. I'm here today to express my strong support for the Yountville Commons project and the ordinance that makes it all possible. This project represents more than just a development. It represents opportunity for hardworking men and women and access for good-paying construction jobs that provide family-sustaining wages, healthcare benefits, and a path towards long-term financial stability. These are the kinds of jobs that allow workers to support their families, invest in their communities, and build a better future. Equally important, this project creates real opportunity for apprentices, individuals who are just starting their careers in construction. These are people who are learning valuable skills, earning while working, while they train, and working towards a stable and respected profession. Projects like this are essential to developing the next generation of skilled workers. The Yountville Commons project also brings with it a strong labor standards and meaningful compliance measures. That means a commitment for worker protection, fair wages, safe job sites. Safety is not optional. It's in our industry. It's critical. Ensuring that every worker goes home safe at the end of the day is something we take very seriously, and this project helps uphold those standards. At this time, when communities across California are looking for ways to balance growth with quality jobs, this project does both. It supports economic development while also ensuring that jobs created are dignified, safe, and beneficial to working families and the community. I understand that there are different perspectives on the ordinance, but in my view, this project is a positive step forward. It brings real, tangible benefits, not just in theory, but in lives of the people who will be building it, families who depend on these jobs. I respectfully urge you, the council, to keep the ordinance in place and allow this project to move forward. Doing so supports local workers, strengthens the local economy, and reinforces the values of fairness, safety, and opportunity that Yountville represents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would anybody else from this audience like to come up and address the council?
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Brewster. I live on 1278 State Lane. I agree with so many of the comments here, and I just agree. This is an incredible project, but I do think there is a moment to take a pause. I am in full support, but I think there's opportunity to look at, you do stress testing against some of the budget, also getting more data on the real people that serve our community. I'm here as a resident, but I'm also here as Tug McGraw that works up on the hill at the Yountville Veterans Home, and we have lots of our vets here today that I'd like to recognize. But knowing that it's a different pool of money, I think that there needs to be an absolute real survey done on the people that work here so that we have a full understanding. And I know, Brad, you have an extensive background coming from National City and working with DOD and Navy there, and that was my understanding that, you bring some of this talent, and I'd like to see more creativity and how we can do better partnerships as we look at this project and agree with Hillary and the council that, collectively, I think we have some great ideas to really make this a true, wonderful, sustainable opportunity to really solve some of the housing crises that our employees face. And, there's almost 885 jobs up on the hill, and we haven't even included them. And how can we be more creative? So I ask for more information and stress test the budget against what's proposed. So thank you.
Anybody else like to address the council?
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jackson, and I work here in Yountville in the hospitality industry. I want to start by saying clearly I support workforce housing, and it's something we need, and it's something I see the impact of every day. But I'm here today because I also believe we have a responsibility to get it right. From conversations with colleagues and people working in the industry, there are still real concerns about whether the current plan fully reflects how the workforce actually lives. Things like unit types, long-term livability, and overall fit. This is a major investment for the town, and once it moves forward, it becomes very difficult to change course. Given where things stand today, I believe we have an opportunity to take a step back and come back with a stronger, more aligned plan, one that truly works for both the workforce and the community. For that reason, I would respectfully encourage the council to repeal the current ordinance and use this moment to refine the project before moving forward again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Margene, I live here in Yountville. I don't have a prepared talk, but I'm listening to our carpenters who speak quite eloquently. Thank you. And I'm wondering where they live. Not to be personal, but are you able to live in Yountville if you wanted to? I think that's part of what this project is trying to create. Make happen. That if you wanted to live in Yountville, you could possibly afford to live in Yountville. And I don't mean any offense. Maybe you can, and you already do. But that, to me, is what workforce housing is. You create beautiful things. And I just am supportive of this. We've hit a really hard place. I feel a lot of negativity, which I don't like, but there's lots of good questions being raised, and I think the council's trying their best to listen hard and dig deeper and do what they think is best. Thank you. It's not easy. There's been a lot of meetings kind of on the side, and there seems to be almost a cult being created that is against this. Again, this isn't a prepared speech, but I hope we're able to pull together and do what it takes to achieve what we have set out to do, maintain our beautiful town, and have housing available for people that help make it happen, and that they can become a part of our community. They don't have to commute from Santa Rosa, Vacaville, American Canyon, wherever. Anyhow, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Paul.
Paul Marciniak. I just have a few comments up thing. I'm aware that this project currently was standing at doing phase 1, phase 2 of whatever was happening, which at the most was 40 units, which, okay, that sounds like a lot, but compared to all the numbers of the workforce, that's a drop in the bucket. But it's an important part because people will be able to live here. I looked online, and there was only one 2-bedroom apartment available for rent in this town at this current moment. There's no studios, there's no single bedroom places. So we do need the housing. We can use it as quickly as we can build it. Now, I know there's a lot of need for the housing. I've heard people say that they would like housing, they're not against it. As far as I know, the town feels comfortable pursuing the 30 to 40 units, whatever it is, whatever we decide the size is, the mix will be, how it'll fit, and then proceed on with the rest of it in the future as we see development happening, whether somebody else comes in and takes the lead on that and builds additional housing or develops it further, whether businesses are allowed to come in. Those are all in future phases. We're only at the beginning, but this is a critical part. It brings workers into the town who otherwise wouldn't be able to. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Appel. I live in Yountville, and I want to talk a little bit about the process that's led us here and the finances that keep coming up. So first off, I want to address a little bit of gaslighting by the council and its management about taking some really well thought out and transparent and communicative approach over the past year plus about this project and assuming that this is just some train going down the tracks that the entire community supports, like it's some foregone conclusion. The reality is that while you guys may have been deliberating about what to do with this property, which by the way was only purchased using 30% of the purchase price came from the Measure S fund that's dedicated to housing. The other 60% plus of the purchase price came from general taxpayer revenues. And we only got financial details, actual unit mix details, really any details at all within the past couple months. And what you've seen is a very small town being very vocal, really voicing concerns left, right, and center. And it's no wonder, looking at how flawed this plan was once we actually got all the details, that we were able to get signatures exceeding 10% of the voting population on a referendum within 5 days. And so the vibe that I'm getting from this council, I mean, the lawyers immediately moving from repealing the referendum to what our next steps are to just push through some altered version of it. And what I'm not hearing from the council is a genuine effort to understand the concerns. Like they're these sort of afterthoughts. Because the reality is that no matter how much you guys want to claim these false information, misinformation numbers that have been thrown out, I've read the KNN report. I've read the BAE report. And the numbers totaling over $90 million, costing the town $4 million a year that we don't have. The town is already expected to run a deficit starting next year without spending a dime on this project. Phase 1 alone that we're talking about, like it's some easy first step that's going to kind of dip our feet in the water or whatever, doesn't break even with $1 million of extra taxpayer subsidies a year. The whole model is dependent on hospitality revenue that's completely unsecured. You guys have heard other people in the room talk about how the wine industry is currently doing. Yountville will not be affordable with a $4 million hole in the budget every single year. It only becomes more expensive, and you guys are just planning to spend money that doesn't exist. If this plan was first proposed with a price tag that we could actually afford, you heard from the KNN analyst who gave you your bond financing that even phase 1, you couldn't get a bond to cover it. We'd have to actually just go and get a bank loan at basically 2x worse terms just to pay for phase 1. And we're just going to sort of like figure out the other $60 million later. I mean, the way that you guys have conducted yourselves in terms of not being communicative, kind of making decisions and then getting the details later, and then trying to gaslight us into this backwards sort of philosophy that you guys have been communicative is just outright insulting. You've heard plenty of support for workforce housing from the community, but we can't just let you spend $85+ million that doesn't exist. Like, you guys have to start with a budget and ask yourself what we can afford. There are 1,700 taxpayers in this town. Like, we're a very small town, and the revenues are somewhere on the order of, I think, $15 million a year. Someone can fact check me on that. We have $5 million in the bank. A $90 million project is simply too expensive to just push through without having any concrete understanding of your financing options available. And if you don't think that it's going to be covered by raised sales taxes, raised occupancy taxes, and raised property taxes, where do you think the money is coming from? That's a super valid question for people to ask. And so, yes, that's why we had to stop this effort, because we can't allow it to go ahead and ruin the town and sort of figure out how we're going to solve the problem later. So, yeah, those are my comments.
Mayor, I love public comment, and it's relative. I'd love to have a little bit of dialogue with this Mr. Appel. And
Go right ahead.
I really appreciate you being here, and I'm excited that there's a large number of residents that are here that are actively engaged in a process we've been doing for 2 years. I had an opportunity to meet you first and your wife at an event that Councilmember Tripp and I had at the Locals Lounge, and welcome to town. You've been here for 6 months, and so I really look forward to further dialogue and conversation, because we have a tradition here in Yountville where we're respectful, we dialogue, we collaborate, and we come together and find solutions that the community can agree on. And so part of that is a little bit of education about public financing and public planning, which I'm not sure that people we have a chance to talk about, because it's different than private development. Like the other developers in this town that own property, public planning is different. The day that the community saw the reports provided by BAE was the same day the council saw the documents. That's what transparency is. That's what communicating with the town. The documents were released the same day to the council as the community. 3 days later, we had a public hearing and a discussion in Schmidt Hall to hear the community's comments. It was that document was a starting point in a conversation of how we finance a project. It was a starting conversation about all the questions I had heard and had questions about: parking, unit mix. But and on that day we got financing information, and that's where the conversation was beginning. And what we need to do is continue to meet, continue to dialogue, continue to talk about what this community supports, and the funds that we have set aside that visitors pay in Measure S, that we build, that we do our best as one community in this valley, where every city in this valley makes an effort to provide affordable and workforce housing in their communities. So I look forward to future conversations. I hope you're there. I hope we can talk about what we need, and I hope we can hear about what you support, and not what your what your criticism, but what you really support in this community. So I look for. I'm not sure what decision the council will make tonight, but let's move forward with a conversation and a dialogue that's productive for the whole community.
Yes, more public comment, please come up.
My name's Ross Albert. I live here in Yountville, and one reason I moved here was I love the small town. We have no stoplights. We have one gas station. We have one mart. I've heard mixed numbers from 40, 60, 90, whatever these units are, at 300 square feet, 400 square feet. I don't know how they're going to support a family. I don't know where we're going to put the cars. On a busy day in Yountville, there's almost no parking now. We're going to use up every inch of that property for this 300 or 400 square foot, which is unlivable. I understand the carpenters want to have work, and that's great, and I'd love to support them. I'd love to have people be able to buy here and live here. But to drop in the middle of the town, this explosion of population where there's no grocery stores, we're not a big city, we're a small town. It makes no sense to me at all, besides all the financial end that they're bringing up. I'm all for the housing. The other problem, we have apartments back here behind the Bardessono. Me and my wife walk down that parking. Those apartments are so small. Everybody has everything they own sitting outside their doors. You put somebody in a 300 or 400 square foot house, they're going to have to, there's nowhere to put any of their property. They can't have a husband and a wife and a child. It's for one worker. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I'm just not happy about what's been going on in this town with that. But thank you.
I don't think there's anything that says I can't come up twice.
Do you mind if I try to get through all the public comment in the other room and be more than happy to bring you back up if you want?
I don't mind if you let me finish here and then you can go there.
No, sorry.
Okay, but you go there and then I'll finish. Is there anything that says I can't get up again?
The council can allow it if they'd like to.
Okay. Well, then you allow me to come up again?
I already said, yeah, let me just get through. Everybody get a first chance. I'd be more than happy to ask you to...
Just a small little something.
To come back. Thank you. Anybody else in this room like to come up, and then I'll go to the locals lounge. Yes.
Hello. Megan Mason. I just want to say publicly thank you to the town council for all of the hours you've got. I can't imagine how many hours you put in. And I know you do it because you love this town. Eric and Pam, 40 years plus living here. I'm similar. We love this town, and this is why we're all very concerned. And that's why I hope you can vote and put this referendum at respect it and what we're caring about. I'm going to say, like, what the big elephant to me is that people want some more decently fair price housing. I don't think the elementary school is really the right place. There's been conversations. I think, why can't we talk to Sacramento and have them work with us? Since it's a state facility, they need more of the bodies. They can't open all the beds that they've for the skilled housing, skilled nursing. Why can't they come in partnership with us and help support us financially in building housing up at the Veterans Home? There's so much land there. I think that would be perfect. It's so beautiful up there, close proximity to town. I also would really like to see a little bigger places because we need younger people, families. You can look around and we know probably in another 20, 30 years, a lot of us aren't going to be here. And I'd like to have people who are engaging and love this community as much as we do. So I would love to have housing that is, I don't know what the term is, just reasonably priced for a family of 4 or young couple. And I think, and that's something down the road again when we're maybe revisiting, but there's a lot of other creativity thoughts, I think, in where we put this. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to address a couple just quick items because I kind of hear them a lot. I know that seems to me that everyone thinks that we're just going to, that we were only going to build these small studios. We never really made any decision about unit mixes. I never thought any of the council just wanted a bunch of small units. So I'm not sure where that got started. I just wanted to say, that was never the case. It might have been in some documents for getting some, financial estimates or something, but it was like several options, but that was never a plan. So I really hope that, I can maybe put an end to that. Also, last 20 years, previous councils, current councils, we've been talking to the state more than 2 decades. Someday, maybe, but it's not something that we don't talk about a lot. So anyway, just those 2 things. So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to say about the sizes, because we've heard we never, and it's true, and I wish in retrospect, and I remember sitting here one time pointing at Eric saying, gosh, I wish I knew what Eric thought of some of these unit sizes, just picking somebody out of the air. And the only time I really became aware of the unit sizes was in December when the CEQA documents came out, and there were square footage on everything but the units. And so I am no flippin' expert reading charts, but we have, on one hand, we said we have no information on unit sizes, and then I go in the room, and there's an entire RFP package with detailed drawings of all these units. And so I looked at the building size, I divided out the number of units, this is simple math, and they were very small, 300 square feet. And I confirmed with, and this is not till December, I just confirmed with that I was not totally off base, and I was told, yes, that's true. And the number of studios has varied, but it's gone between 60 to 80%. And with a little digging in December, and this goes to the transparency issue, with a little digging in December, I was able to figure out, and I'm no rocket scientist, that these were 300 square foot units. I actually never saw 350, but I was told 300 to 350, and a lot of them, between 60 and 80%. That number was out there, and I actually have some handwritten notes from the town manager confirming that. So, one, that's a transparency problem, that it took that long for us to find out, because those are not particularly viable units, as everybody's pointed out, for everything you own, and in a not particularly transparent way. And it's really not transparent when we've invested, and we're investing millions of dollars in detailed building plans to get, and yes, I understand they're not firm fixed bids, but people were bidding on these, contractors, based on those particular unit sizes. So that's just a mystery to me. And we keep saying the unit. And then the final thing I'll say, to add, in my viewpoint, insult to injury, when we go February 15th, or 17th, the units have actually gotten smaller. The architect is now projecting, and I didn't work out the unit size, we'd get more units into a building. So they might be smaller than 300 square feet. And then he's added, and this was a public document that none of us had any input on, he's added these bed systems that come out of the ceiling, between $25,000 and $35,000 a unit. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to think, okay, I'm renting a place, the garage door doesn't work great. Okay, I could probably live with that. But if I can't get my flippin' bed out of the ceiling, I'm really going to start complaining to management. And that just appeared, a column with all these orange beds and smaller units. And I'm thinking, there is something really wrong with that picture. So I don't know if we were asleep. I don't know if we weren't told. I'm not going to argue about the unit size, but it was really, really hard to figure this out. And I was paying really close attention. And that was just too late. And then we say, oh, unit sizes, it could change or this or that. Huge impact on the operational costs, huge impact on, in terms of management costs, the rentability. This is not like a mix and match thing. Huge impact on who we're actually serving. So again, I just have to say, we did not do a good job conveying what was actually going on. And I particularly did not like in February, at that late date, a new column appearing with these bed systems that were astronomically expensive, and then the units were actually getting smaller after much discussion that people weren't happy with the little units as they were. So I just have to say, if I got any of those facts wrong, that was what was happening when I was tracking what was going on. It was really hard to find out, and that shouldn't be. Why not just have come out and said that, you know? Anyway, what the unit size actually was, you know.
Mayor,
people would be less angry, I think, if they were given information in a timely, complete way. It would have made things a lot easier.
Mayor, I just have to speak. I mean, to comment to Councilmember Tripp, we were in a planning process, and there was an architect doing form design, and so unfortunately, like I've said, I'm looking forward to future conversations and communication with the community, because we have to come to some common ground and reduce mistrust. We live in a world every day where we wake up and we don't know what's going to be happening in this world. You know, from what we read in Washington, that mistrust of government has found its way back into our small towns. But I just want to say the process we've been going through, and my openness as we move through, is I knew there were still conversations to have about unit mix, about parking, about the furnished apartments, because you could make the case both ways.
But did you find it relevant, Eric?
But you can make the case both ways. If you make, I have two daughters that lived in studios. It's a part of the economy of young people working now that they're living in studios. And so it was just a conversation that we have. And maybe some folks out there have never had to live in a studio. And so they think, so the point is we were talking about it. And our plan was talking about studios, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. But there's also financial issues when if you provide when you provide a furnished studio, if you make it larger, then the cost per square foot goes up. So there's trade-offs. Do you furnish an apartment, or do you make a unit bigger that literally costs the town more to build it? So this is just a part of what we're going to continue. I hope we continue to talk about, because I think we need to find out what the folks that work in town need. I don't think building large family units in this town where everything that people need is in Napa. What we need to look at is every opportunity in this conversation with the community about with people, young people here, single people, like the gentleman that spoke earlier, what they need to live and work in Yountville. And that's what I'm looking forward to continuing to do, is have that conversation, find common ground, reduce mistrust, so we can move forward. Because there's working people in this town that need a place to live. And if you read that article in the Wall Street Journal, there's a worker in town here who comes from Vallejo or Solano and would like to live in town, a single young man who would like to live here. So we need to find out what the needs are and move forward.
And I won't bemoan this, and because one of my points that I was going to try to make is that we move past dissecting the past, because it doesn't really do us any good. I totally agree with you about trust, and my only question to you, and the thing that made me so uneasy, was I thought we were where we were, and then when you go to the plan room and you look at all the money that's been invested in designing very detailed plans of these little units, and it was a lot of money, I began to feel uneasy that And I think I probably emailed you and said, did you know there's a whole room full of detailed plans and drawings? So anyway, I don't have a particular problem with studios. If somebody had said, yeah, we'll build 30% studios, that's fine for a reasonable size, Anyway, so I'll stop. But I'm with you. We need common ground.
Thank you. I agree.
Okay, still in this room for any more public comment? If not, can I get the cards to call up the public in the other room?
My name is Daniel. I spoke at the previous meeting on this matter. I would just like to share observations and some, I wouldn't call it brevity, but some of the positive things, the opportunities, maybe hidden opportunities in this situation. I think from the perspective I've been able to observe this process take shape and hear some of the dialogue back and forth, I think that it's a problem. The friction or the problems you're having are basically problems of success, and better than the alternative. And so in the course of business, I've had the opportunity to hear what people love about the town, both in passing and in direct conversation while pitching and other things. And always, there's always a comment. It's so beautiful. It's so clean. It's so quaint. It's so quiet. And none of these things, maybe you arrived here serendipitously, let's say, over the course of decades and hard work by a lot of proprietors and a lot of locals combined. But you definitely don't arrive at a place like that on accident. And then what we usually share with passerbys is you will definitely not stay that kind of place on accident. There's no way. So we generally tell people who already have an organic, immediate interest that a lot of the beautiful things, maybe they arrived here, maybe the demand and the notoriety came to be what it is today, maybe by some level of serendipity, some level of providence, but it's managed well. That's always something I'm able to share with the random passerby. It arrived here how it arrived here. Currently, it's managed well. I field a lot of questions by interested buyers. What about building? What about modifying homes? How open is the town? How open are they to facilitating changes, builds, restructuring, heavy remodels? And I say, well, what I've been able to basically quote from a couple of previous examples is, if you propose something that keeps within the nature and the character of the town has showed itself willing to facilitate your ideas to the extent that they're able. And that's generally sufficient, that they're not turned away, they're not turned off. The interest that they had, which was organic, it either grows from that understanding or at least maintains stable. They don't lose interest. A couple of good examples I'm able to cite are the development on the north end of town, the infill development that went back and forth, a lot of detailed conversation, a lot of give and take from both sides. And in the end, the project had to pencil. Nobody's going to take on a project like that if it doesn't pencil. It was able to pencil, and the attention to detail that was given there was significant, to the point there was some back and forth, and it came down to, in fact, well, there's a gate, and we don't want a gate because it's just something that is visible. It's maybe a little bit, let's say, abrasive to the passerby. It's not the message we'd like to communicate as far as what the character of the town should convey. A gate, that was a 9+ home development. So I can cite those things and say that the town would like things that fit the nature and the character of the town. And if you propose something like that and it's reasonable, they've shown themselves pragmatic and they facilitate. So there's a big concern from those that make up the inbound demand. What's it like? Can we build? Can we make a place our own? And I think town has shown itself willing and able to do that in a couple of those examples. Another great one, highly visible property, I believe it's Humboldt and Washington, very visible, came back, was encouraged to reintroduce a number of times their ideas, because the concept was right in the center, a highly visible area, right in the center of Washington, street shared by everybody, street that draws a lot of demand and interest. And they did that. They came back and resubmitted and dialogued. And something better than the original eventually was able to kind of come to the surface there. Is it always a win-win that's possible? Maybe not. If it's a decision that requires sacrifice from everybody, well, if there's more dialogue and there's more space to have open conversation, then the best of a hard decision can kind of come forward. The last time I was encouraging maybe, using some temperance and some patience. Sometimes circumstances may force you to make a decision. It sounded like from everybody's comments that, even though starting over may seem a harsh thing or a hard thing to do, if the efficacy of the original idea is still there.
Can you wrap up real quick?
I can. If the idea is good enough, it can survive. It can come back with more buy-in. Some of the advantages I wanted to point out are the engagement of the council, and you have employers that are engaged, that are willing, that have shown themselves willing to personally dialogue rather than immediately become combative. And that's an asset, I think, in other blue chip towns and beautiful towns that I've had the chance to be involved in. You don't always have.
Just one more quick comment, please.
Yeah, I think a lot of good things are going on here, and the problems that may seem challenging or abrasive or negative are generally problems of success. And I think there's an opportunity for a good outcome rather than the alternative.
Okay,
So
thank you
that's
very
all.
much. Now I'd like to, we were going to do 3, but I have 4 people I'm going to call up all at once, but they can talk in this order. Let's see, we have somebody from the Carpenters Union. His first name is Hector. I think his last name is Lopez. In the Locals Lounge, if he could come up. And Daniel, I think that was just Daniel speaking. Yes. And then Stephanie is in the Locals Lounge, if she could come forward, as well as Bridget Britton. And then Gary, you'll be 4th after those 3 have spoken. So what's your name?
Stephanie. Did you want me to wait for the others?
Yes. Hector is first, and then you're second, and then Bridget. And then we're back to Gary. Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah, go ahead then. That's a good point.
Hi, I'm Bridget Britton. I know I'm so young to move
Oh, one second. Let me have Stephanie's here. Stephanie's ahead of you. Can she speak first? So Hector doesn't look like he's going to be here, but if he comes, I'll let him speak.
Hector.
And then you'll be next, Bridget.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm Deputy Director at Generation Housing, where we advocate for more affordable and more diverse housing in the North Bay. We support this project as proposed, but in light of how much the landscape has changed week to week with the petition, the letter, we want to highlight that there is a way for this town to create a more stable environment to make sound medium-term decisions. We sent in a letter yesterday that was co-signed by Napa Solano for Everyone and NIMBY Action explaining this process, which would give the town more options, the most options possible without committing to any specific course of action right now. We would urge you to direct staff to study those options and bring them back to you, no matter how you decide to act on the petition today. Thank you for your service.
Okay, thank you very much. And is your name Hector? Hector, please come up. And then, Bridget, you're up.
I first want to thank you for your time, City Council members. I am a resident of Santa Elena, born and raised on the Hill. Lived there all my life. I am on the St. Helena Planning Commission, so I got to be there by 6. 27-year Carpenter member, and it sounds like you're all in a pickle, like our town is, right? No housing. Okay. Seems like a lot of research was done. It's been a long process for you, and it even happens in our town. You put out letters, nobody shows, and then all of a sudden there's always some kind of thing going on where there's a lot of conspiracy type of theory. But the reality is that we got to keep communicating and pulling forward. What both our cities are going through is basically demands by the state. Then your zoning you already done your homework and know that there has to be housing, and it's a tough situation. And just from a builder's perspective, right? I've been one of the few planning commissioners that's hands-on building perspective. There's only certain options for low-income or affordable housing, and Father Brinkle, who was one of our Catholic priests in Santa Helena, did several housings, 10 projects at a time, took 10, 15 years to do it, 100 people applying. It's been tough, but they're all smaller units. And I've lived in dorms. I was lucky enough to get an AA from SRJC. I got a bachelor's from UC Berkeley in 97, was going to do a doctorate, went to work, found out, hey, social work does not pay. So I joined the Carpenters 27 years ago, became an apprentice, and it changed my life and career. It became my second family to my home. And these jobs that are being built here, from the Veterans Home, state-of-the-art, Robert Mondavi, all the right contracting wineries, they bring in new people, and they build our future and build our workforce that's skilled labor. We all know what untrained labor does. It goes over cost, overpriced. You don't pass code. You got to have that trained labor follow you along the way to keep the whole nation going, basically. And I ask, the costs are crazy, right? And we're all thinking about costs, but do we even know what we're going to pay for gas maybe this evening after we know what's going on? Things are changing consistently, and the more you sit on stuff, the more it takes to get the ball rolling again. I think you got a great game plan. I think we got different issues from both sides, but I am in support of this moving forward. As a resident from Napa Valley, I tell you this is a life-changing project, and you got to start somewhere, and the dialogue continues. And my town isn't any easier, and I'm there fighting for the same type of deal that we need working-class homes, and they're not going to be luxury homes, unfortunately. They're not going to be a big square footage home. They're well-designed, basically small units. And believe me, the working class will appreciate a roof over their head with a well-designed place where to wash your clothes. Those are essentials because we have beautiful parks. A lot of the working class loves using parks. I know when I was a student, and a lot of students, you use public spaces when you don't have a big home, right? We got to get away from the big home and start getting smart about it. And the only way to do it is pull forward with good plans. Sounds like you got the union contractors there. That's why I'm here to speak on behalf to tell you, I've been in the community. I wasn't participating because of all the work that the Carpenters have me doing, but I said, no, I got to speak out in my town. And I believe that we have a few people around here. These jobs that are created, what happens is once you nurture and get the skill sets, you go to the next town and help them have the buildings, and then you still live in your community and build these great projects and houses, and you have that skilled labor living around your town. So it's a win-win for everyone, for the new people coming up, for your town and housing. And I just think that we still got to work with our towns because of all the friction. But I see that this council has done a great job and has been trying their best to show the changing face of what's being demanded upon us by the state. And but I'm in full support of the project, and I hope that your decision isn't easy, but I hope that you all pull forward as a community of Santa Helena's. And I thank you for calling me because I was getting a little nervous. I got to go and start doing some more homework for my difficult situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I'm going to call Myrna on deck. So Myrna, okay, wait, no, you're on deck. Sorry, on deck means I got one more person, and then you're up next. So Bridget, please.
Hi, I'm Bridget. I'm also a resident. I just came to discuss also safety. I'm always out in town talking to the locals and the workforce, and from the plan you guys have created so far, I don't know a single person that would move into it or that likes the idea of it. So I'm just wondering the safety that comes into concern with like how quaint and beautiful our town is, like who's actually living there? Because if they're not living and working in Yountville, like what's going to happen to the town of Yountville? I know people come here to enjoy themselves and enjoy the safety. So my main concern is safety. Who's really living there? Yeah, so maybe we should get a survey done for who's really working at the restaurants and the hotels and if they would actually live there, because makes no sense to me why we're building something for people who will have to commute somewhere else. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Myrna and then Gary. Now you're up. Now you're up. Not on deck.
My name is Myrna David. I did not plan to speak today, but after hearing all the conversation that's gone on prior to this, I felt compelled to do this. First of all, I want to say to the town council and to our staff, you guys are incredible. You're not only working incredibly hard right now, but you're having to internalize what I think is a very, very stressful time in a town that, for me, having lived here for 20 years, has just been become part of my DNA. I love living in this town, and it's pretty visible in the fact that I volunteer. I'm on the Parks and Rec Advisory Commission. I'm on the Foundation Board. I represent the town of Yountville on the Library Commission. I am I'm a member of Yountville Fit. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I am embedded in this town. And I started working with you, with the staff and with the council almost 2 years ago to discuss various elements of this project. At the time, it seemed like people were very enthusiastic about not only workforce housing, but building workforce housing in this particular space. That went on, it seemed to me, for months with all sorts of meetings that I attended and other people attended. Everyone was enthusiastic. And then, all of a sudden, a few months ago, it just seemed like there was a groundswell of negativity. And it really blindsided me, quite frankly, because it was not characteristic of what I felt was this town was about. When we all met for the study session on February 17th, I thought that the town presented sort of a general plan of what they wanted to do and gave everybody an opportunity to talk about it. I think they said we were going to scale it back. It was no longer going to be the $90 million project that may have been envisioned initially. We're going to scale it back to one phase. Everybody seemed to be talking about a survey of the workforce, which I personally endorsed, and the town council was starting to move forward with that. So up until that point, it seemed like there was a lot of enthusiasm for this workforce housing project in this site. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, a bunch of forces converged together to kind of want to turn it all upside down. And it just seems to me that there still is an opportunity to retain the enthusiasm that we had at the beginning, continue to consider this site and this project for workforce housing, maybe make some modifications in it, maybe, get some input from people who didn't feel listened to and didn't feel like their ideas were being incorporated, but to stick with this plan, because I think it's a great plan. It's a great plan for our workforce. It's a great plan for workers who want to work in this town and help us build this community. And I think it'll be a beautiful project. I think everything about it that you guys designed, it just looked great. And I think maybe we might have gone overboard with that because it ended up costing, seeming like it would cost a lot of money. But bottom line, I really trust all of you. I trust all of you to do this right. I don't think that you're going to do it the same as you started, as was planned a few months ago. I think that there's been a lot of input since then, but I really believe that we should be doing this. This is a good thing for the town of Yountville. This is a good thing for our image, and I'm a proud resident of this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary.
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please come up.
Hi, I'm Jessie Bugden. I live here in town. Sorry, I'm not much of a public speaker, but I just wanted to say a few words. My fiance and I moved here almost a year ago at this point because we wanted a close-knit community. I've lived in Napa, I've lived a lot of places, and I used to visit Yountville a lot when I was living in Napa, and I loved how it felt, and I loved how neighborly it felt. We wanted this community and to know and be friendly with our neighbors, not to fight with them, and certainly not to be where we are today. But after the February 17th meeting, to say we were concerned would be an understatement. I admit we weren't residents here for the whole process over the past several years, but we have spoken to enough long-term residents that were actively involved in the meetings that occurred in the past, and the consensus was that the plans presented on February 17th were inconsistent with past meetings, whether it be unit size or scale of the project. Why does this have to cost the town any money at all to begin with? Why did this turn into a 120 to 150 unit project when the requirement is far less than that? And now to address Councilman Eric's question earlier, why are the single people more important than the families? And how do we know how many single people there are in town that want to live here versus families when surveys haven't been done to address that? I'm not going to get into all the flaws of this project and the better options in this comment, as I feel they've all been voiced 10 times over, but I just want to clarify how we've been feeling if it's not clear. And to address Pam's earlier point, the intent of the referendum was 100% not to be a forced stop to this project. It was to force a pause to have this dialogue that we didn't feel we were getting. It's not about stopping workforce housing at all, and I want to be extremely clear about that. Only redirecting the project as it was presented at that meeting. We wanted to have the dialogue. People were submitting letters, going to the meetings, the side meetings that were held by Eric and Hillary Tripp and others around town. But it seemed to be falling largely on deaf ears. During that time of supposed listening, parts of the baseball field were demolished. I'm sorry, but talk about tone deaf. The town manager was quoted in the Wall Street Journal as saying, "I don't understand their concerns," referencing the concerns the community was raising. To be fair, I was not there for the conversation between the reporter and Brad, but that's what was quoted in the paper. Everything Councilwoman Tripp has said today just shows that this project was farther along than is being led on. The money spent on plans alone with no budget set in the first place is extremely concerning. I also agree with her in saying there's no need to keep dissecting the past, but I think it is imperative that the council seriously hear and consider all the concerns presented to them today and over the past 2.5 months in any housing conversations going forward. Thank you.
Do we have we don't have any more cards from anybody in the local lounge? Town clerk?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, do we have any additional comment from the audience?
Mayor, I am just going to do a last call for comments from the lounge to make sure we're
So
set.
then I'm going to close public comment and bring it back for our discussions. And we'll be excusing Councilmember Tripp.
Thank you.
So nobody else is coming, or do we know?
No additional comments. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council. So I think, why don't we talk first, several things. I think, a lot of us will like to, have some discussion about what we heard. But first, maybe we could focus on what's for us about repealing the ordinance either by council decision or placing it on the ballot. And then we can go to further discussion after that. Would that work for everybody? Who would like to start?
I will.
Okay, Councilmember McKee.
Consider my button pushed.
Okay.
I think there was a little confusion brought forth from one of the carpenters in the union that said, don't repeal it, just keep going. That option is not on the table today. So we're considering whether or not to send this to our ZDRB to make the recommendation to repeal the referendum or to put it on the ballot. So with those two options, we are not in the mode, just so you understand, to quickly try to find a workaround. That is not how we work here in Yountville. We do want to come. Oh, thanks for playing the dramatic music for me. Everywhere I go, music follows. I just can't help it. I'd pick a different song, though. But, we are not in the place that we want to speed this forward, find any other options, but to work through this with clarity. I have more to say possibly later about how I see us falling on our sword, if you will, to make some suggestions that we show that we have been listening. But right now, I just want to say that I support, let's get this moving, let's repeal it, let's start some healing. And I'll pass that off.
Okay, great. Councilmember Knight, would you like to speak next?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we have the issues before us. I know we have a lot of dialogue and issues about the project up to now, but the issue before us obviously is whether we rescind or make a decision to put the item on the ballot. And I don't think putting an item like this on the ballot helps dialogue, collaboration, communication, and creating common ground. It just creates an opportunity for just two sides to battle, and we never achieve what we need to is to talk about how we provide workforce housing in this community, and how, as a couple people, the gentleman here before us is going to the Planning Commission in St. Helena, is that the state of California is requiring more and more. The pendulum has swung. Cities have to make efforts to provide affordable housing. It's not a game where you make numbers up and do nothing. We are at a point now where cities have to act, or builders or developers can come in under builders' remedies and build humongous projects with no review by the town. So I think the most productive thing for us to do is to rescind the ordinance and begin a conversation again. And I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Reeves.
Yes, I agree with Eric. I would like to put this particular chapter behind so that we can move forward with more discussion and more information gathering. I think our original information that was put out on February 17th has been totally disregarded and misunderstood, and I think it will require us talking through the information we already have and looking for more information so that we can find a better place to make this project work.
So you're in favor of the repeal? Yes. I would also, I'm going to make, with at least the four of us, that unanimous as well. I don't think it really serves the community at all to wait until November to probably accomplish what we can just do here today by council action. So I think that that would be a very reasonable and prudent thing for this council to do, to go ahead and repeal that. So do you need just a general thought that we would like to, the four council members here today would like to send this to the ZDRB and get their advice on whether we should the council should repeal it or send it to the ballot. Then when it comes back to us, as we discussed earlier, we will take that advice under consideration and then make a final decision. But certainly everybody, since this is a public meeting, including the ZDRB, will know where we're leaning right now.
Mm-hmm. Will Councilmember Tripp be coming back? Should we wait for input or vote on this?
I believe she has left.
Okay. So the direction's fine. I'd say let's make a motion and vote for that for the record.
Okay.
And then we will
do that.
take it to the ZDRB as soon as we can notice that. Just as a reminder for the public, state law requires 20 days of public hearing notice before we can set that for in front of the ZDRB. Then the ZDRB has to make a recommendation. We then have another 10 days of notice before we can come here. And of course, the ZDRB only meets at certain dates and the council only meets at certain dates. So we will move as quickly as we can, but given all of those requirements, don't expect this to be on an agenda next week. But we'll move as fast as we can.
With that said, can either one of the ZDRB or the council meetings, I'm not saying we're requesting that be special meetings, or they have to be regular?
They can be special meetings.
Okay.
The council meeting can be, yes is the short answer.
Okay, we'll leave that up to staff and how it all works out. So just so everybody knows, that's a possibility with the specific requirements that we have to have for
notice.
So with that, can I get a, well, I'll make the motion that we direct our ZDRB to consider either repealing the ordinance or placing it on the ballot in November as an advisory vote to the council.
It's just the repeal piece of it, not
Just
the
the
second
repeal.
piece. Yep, to
Oh.
consider a recommendation to the council regarding a repeal of the ordinance.
Just repeal the ordinance, just that, okay, not, okay, then it'll come back to the council. Okay, got that. So can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstain? That passes unanimously. So now let's go on to the second direction we want to possibly give town staff regarding, we've had a lot of discussion about community engagement and any options that we would like for direction to give staff. So give time for everyone to exit.
I think you're going to miss some information that we're going to be requesting, though. Well,
I think they misunderstood that. It's all right. Well,
They don't care.
not that they wanted.
They don't care.
No.
All right, so any general thoughts that, who would like to start? Eric, I'll go with you first. What about?
just general comments.
General comments and possible direction to staff about.
Others
steps
may be
regarding
able to
communication.
provide more information. I just think is what I've heard from the community. I think it's important that we ask staff to come back with a proposal to do more research in some form to have a better understanding of the needs in Yountville. That would be one. The second item, I think it's in.
You're referring to like market research?
More market research,
Okay.
right. And maybe I'll stop there because I'm sure someone else will have thoughts, other thoughts.
Reeves.
I think also we had already given staff direction to work or send out an RFQ request for qualifications of an operator. But at this point, I think we also need more information and possible partnership kind of ideas. So if we could have a combo of operator development partner, that would suit our needs more completely. And I think I would like the other council members to consider that as well.
Okay. Councilmember McKee.
Well, now that everybody's left the room, I did want to give an analogy of February 17th. I mean, we learned quickly with the raw data that we got there that it was a starting point and it was ingredients that was a foundation of a recipe, but as anybody that spends time in the kitchen knows, you need to assess and test and add on. So we were ready to do, to request that staff order some more market research at the last meeting, but we wanted to respect the request to go slower. There's just been so much information swirling in the community, and it's been understood and misunderstood and misinformation. So definitely having this opportunity to just stand back and to all look at the same page together is going to be important. You know, I am a product of workforce housing here in Yountville. I lived here in the 80s. I had a roommate who now works with the county, and the gal next door ran the chamber, and she is actually Kathy Tagliabashi. So workforce housing can bring people to the community that maybe while they're not moving in with a family immediately, it doesn't mean that they are transient. It means that they are making a long-term commitment to hopefully, we hope it means that they'll make a long-term commitment to stay local. I stand for workforce housing. I haven't shared this, but because our 29-year-old son died while trying to afford working and going to school to get his enology license. He had a heart attack while working harvest. So he couldn't afford to live in this area, so he was commuting back and forth over the mountain. And that stress of trying to get engaged, trying to go to school to better himself, and trying to work to the best of his ability. He worked at Pallmeyer, and then he got a job over in Sonoma County to run the night harvest. All of that pressure on somebody so young to be able to afford to live somewhere, to start a family, is incredibly different. I just want us to be able to work together, to be able to work from the same page. So we've been asked to do a market survey, and we know that we need it. We didn't have the recipe, and we were all disappointed on February 17th when we got the raw data. We all took a step back and went, is that all there is? But none of us knew what we were going to receive on that date, so none of us were able to walk away from it saying, well, now we have a complete picture. And I really don't know why the public thinks that we were ready to just roll forward with a $91 million project when there's nothing that could be further from the truth. So we've had meetings. I met with Thomas Keller. This is the folio that they presented. Here is the date. Here's the timeline. And there are some very specific questions in here that he wanted to be asked of BAE. I suspect everybody else during their meetings have same folios. I have never been asked to meet with Mr. Jabara, but I would like to do that. But I need meetings to be based on honesty and for people not to say that we didn't show up. So in going forward with honesty, I would like to ask the council to move forward with BAE to have that dialogue that we had intended to go for. And I would like to take it one step further. You know, if we are not able to talk about this anymore as leaders here in the community without having doubt cast upon us, we are at the point where a facilitator is going to be the only solution that I support.
All right, thank you very much. And I also, do find it very unfortunate that, we're all at, many of us, all the council, but, many of the public, came to the February 17th meeting. I thought we all knew that we had a draft concept plan. We were then going to get information about, what all of our, so many people came to lots of meetings, and just about everything that somebody wanted, from the dog park to a pool to, all sorts of amenities we put on the plan. Then this was always the plan. Then we were going to get, estimates for how much this was going to cost. And that kind of came out. So then the project got hijacked. We're not going to go back and revisit that, but that's exactly what happened. So we really never had a chance to have a conversation with the public, because you would have, we could have stopped this, that everything was going to be these small units, and that, we were going to, spend $91 million, which, well, first of all, no one's ever going to loan you that. So it's like kind of ludicrous to even think that, we'd be going into debt. And just, to clear the record too, we cannot raise your property taxes. Only you can raise your property taxes by a vote. So we don't control that. So I'm not even sure where that kind of craziness came from, but it's nonsense. So don't worry about that. And so, we're finally now re-engaging and, can have a reasonable conversation about what Yountville wants, just like somebody else said. This is always what we do with everything. Go back to the community center. There was a whole lot of discussion about that at one time. And, is that going to be, can we afford that? What's that going to look like? How should we build it? All sorts of stuff. And now it's here. It was a big project, very big project for Yountville. We didn't, have, the kind of finances that we do now. And there was fewer hotels at that time. Bardessono Hotel wasn't here. And a lot of other amenities were not here that, really drive revenues. And that's exactly what they are. They come from lots of different sources. So, but, we just had lots of budget meetings. Everything's either a revenue or an expense. So those are dollars and cents. So I'm not going to apologize for calling things revenues. But, we've been through a lot, and I think we're all going to survive this again. We've just got, some newer people here who, we're going to kind of learn what it's like, living in Yountville, and we really are a close-knit community. And, we can have disagreements, but we're still all friends and neighbors because we're so small. So it's something that that's what we love about Yountville. That's what I love about Yountville. That's why I sit up here all these years after years, just because I love Yountville. So that's why I'm doing here. So anyway, what I heard from this discussion was that we'd like to direct staff to, I think it's an RFP.
RFQ.
Or an RFQ for a development partner. And then we would like to get some more market research. And I think we should also plan for, look around and see where we could possibly line up a neutral facilitator. I think, I know we don't want to go back to the past, but I think it's just going to take a while because a lot of misinformation has built up to really not address that misinformation per se, but really kind of open up the dialogue that we need to have so that we can, as Councilmember Knight said, really move forward. Or maybe they'll be even they're going to be useful for, I think, a lot of more meetings going forward. So that's what did I get that right from everybody here? Yes, Councilmember Knight.
I completely agree with the recommendations and what we're recommending to staff. When we think about a facilitator, I hope staff can find someone that has experience in public planning and finance, or public planning at least. So I think that facilitator will hopefully be able to help and be an independent person to explain the process of public planning and how it's different than private planning, and how, for example, our financial reports that came out in February were a document to begin a conversation and not a document that told the community what we were going to spend. And so someone that has that background in public finance or public planning and as a facilitator would be very helpful. So
okay. So is that clear?
Yeah, that's clear. I think May 5th, I think is probably the meeting. I can provide options to you all. We already had the BAE staff report, so I think I can just bring that back on. If there's any questions of the scope that was defined, I think there was options there for level of market research. Drafting a RFQ for partnership or development partner, that's easy enough. We're going to have to talk about process for that. I mean, I always like to say an RFQ and RFP, it's going to take at least 3 months. So just be aware of the timing of going through that type of process. And then I can research and present options for facilitators that are public planning, neutral, independent. I think all of those things. I can just present some options rather than just try to define the person. And I think the community, can always reach out to me to give me, ideas. I think that's the other thing I wanted to say is that, for me, I've met with everyone that has asked to meet with me. And I also think I'll go to any meeting and talk to anyone. I know I've generally put you all in the hot seat, but I think this is the hot seat here. So I don't shy away from it. And I recognize, the buck stops here, as someone once said. So I'm confident in presenting options on the 5th, but I also think when you get into public planning, this is the challenge that we see, which is, how do you get it right from a process point of view? And I think that's, that's the hardest part. So we will, follow the direction of council. Obviously, on the 5th, we can have another, discussion of this. I think the timing of the repeal is, to me, a question, because I'm guessing we going to move forward with that without sort of an idea of how we're going to replace it? Because it's just going to take far too much time to come up with a plan. So that means, I think, that it basically goes back to the existing zoning. And I think the other thing I just want you all to think about, because I heard tonight, like, which I think, Gary, you need to obviously chime in on, okay, what does the existing zoning mean, you know, in terms of options? Because if we have to go through a replacement, that means we have to go through that cycle one more time, that 3-part cycle of ZDRB council twice. So I just want you to factor that in. We can try to, of course, lay out a schedule as well, but I want everyone to, we've been, I think, pretty good, at least I feel like I've been very transparent as it relates to schedule as we look at the last 2 years, and we've looked at what we knew was going to be the hardest part, which was funding junction or how we're going to pay for things. But we kind of got at the end of the planning, and then we were in this overlap section, whereas you said you never really gave me direction. And I think I can own the fact that maybe we should have done market research earlier. Like, this seems to be one of the things, whether that's a survey or a focus group, those are the things that I need clear direction on, because I feel like I'm obviously responsible for implementing. And I do feel, I will say, proud of the team, because I think we have, you know, had all the meetings we like to talk about, but I also think we followed direction. And I do want to, not now, but take the time, and maybe this is the video of the week or whatever, but to really break down the budget, because we haven't spent millions on the plan. We'll talk about that in very specific terms of where the money has been spent. But I do think that is another piece of misinformation that I think really needs to be clarified now, so there isn't this perception that we've been spending $14 million on a failed plan. I think there's a lot more to it than that. So I will.
Actually, there's a lot less to it than that.
Well, a lot more to that story, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah, a lot. Well, I mean, again, what we have behind us is being used by the community today. So value that as you see fit, but I will break down the numbers in terms of where the money was spent so people can, you know, use their judgment to attribute that to housing versus the amenities that exist versus the engagement we did, et cetera. And I think, you know, the other thing I'll just, you know, not warn you, but I think it's obvious, you know, high-touch engagement, which this community deserves, is expensive. So be prepared to invest, you know, whatever that number is to get to the place where we're all saying, let's get it right. And I think that's the right approach. But I do think you have to recognize that that's expensive. And we will, you know, work at your service and listen to the community, and we will talk about this again on May 5th once we have some things to present to you.
I just want to make it clear that what the town council is doing is giving staff direction to bring back some items for us. We're not approving any money. We're not approving what they're going to be. As staff does some homework for us, they will bring it back, and the council will have a discussion about, okay, we like this, we really don't want this, we want some more information before we go back to this. So nothing has been done except directing staff to bring us back some more information that we can decide on later. So Councilmember Reeves, you have some more comments?
Well, I had many pages of comments to make because I felt like people wanted to hear from the council, and I just want to make a couple of points. I think that to the town manager's point, the design and the project team have worked very hard to make a flexible plan. And I think that flexibility should be our code word as we move forward, because in a flexible plan, you can plug in different ideas. And the actual structure of the design, the parcel creations, the open spaces, all of those things are really good working points. And the fact that the $11 million of the 14 that gets thrown around was to purchase the property in the first place, and that in the first year, 5 community uses were created. Some money was used to improve the property, which had laid fallow for like 4 years. So that's an expense that is natural to someone who buys a new property. We identified during those first years those 5 interim uses, and the entire community has access to them and benefits from them. So the value of the property is already realized to a certain extent. I feel like there's a lot of criticism that somehow we have bought a white elephant. It's not true. We have bought an asset for the community. And whatever we decide moving forward to provide workforce housing builds on that and makes us a stronger community. So I'm hoping that people will remain flexible, listen to what we've already learned and the information that has been produced, and then work from there to make adjustments, make your points in a civil dialogue would be nice. So I really want the idea that this community has always been innovative. We have driven lots of county actions because we started them. And this idea that we don't belong in the housing business, just another innovation possibility. So getting a partner, I don't feel is a negative to that. I think we want to move forward, and we realize the limitations of a small town, and we do need some extra information, and that we have already said that we do. And I want to also address this idea that we don't have a lot of information on our workforce. We do have information from the county, and even though we like to say that we're very unique, I think workforce-wise, we all are in the same boat here. So providing workforce housing for that missing middle that we're talking about, the 60 to 120% of median income, is part of the statistics that were given, and 30% of the workers of every type that we have in this town are in that category. That's a big chunk. And so we can build on that information and get even more specific, but it seems to me that when we're talking about a small number of units, we're going to fill those really quickly. And I'm not committed to any plan that puts the town in financial jeopardy. That I don't think any of us have ever held that belief. So I really would like that we think about this data dump on the 17th as these are some of the costs for this. If we built the whole thing, it's like when you do a remodel in your own house. Yeah, I want that really expensive stove and oven combo, and I want that farmhouse sink, and I want this kind of cabinetry. But when you get the bid from your builder, you're like, maybe not. I can trim that. I can do something different here. So that was supposed to be the start of the discussion. And I would like to carry through on that discussion. And, you know, I've been here for 45 years and we've always had discussions. But I feel like this kind of offense, defense is not serving us as a community. So I would like for us to really reclaim who we are as the heart of the Napa Valley and really focus in on how can we cooperate? How can we bring our ideas together and be collaborative and also be a little bit risky in a way by saying, yeah, I think we could do that. Be innovative, be challenging what the standard is, because Yountville doesn't do standard. We do excellent. So that's my spiel.
Okay. I'm going to move on to staff presentations and informational reports.
I haven't even asked the rest of the staff. They're all looking at me with their head in their shake.
Staff
So I
is
think
like,
we're done.
Brad, don't look
Brad,
at me.
what about
Don't
the
call
community
me, please.
cookout?
Oh, yeah, you can go ahead and talk
Publicly.
about the...
We did. Thank you for your patience with the community cookout rescheduling last week. The rain was going back and forth, but we do look forward to rescheduling that and getting everybody together for good conversation, a little public safety, and enjoying that lovely amenity down at the community center. So
Maybe
look for
some
that
wine,
information.
too. I think
We need a little bit of wine. I do agree. So thank you.
That's it for the staff. Thanks.
Okay, great. I am going to ask for a motion in a second to move to our next meeting.
Mayor,
Yes.
one more.
One more
in
thing.
terms of just council external meeting reports, at our last Napa Valley
I think I'm missing
Transportation
that
Agency
page.
meeting,
Yes.
we all the cities, or a couple of cities, were getting reports on the status of road construction, and we were, I know Vice Mayor Reeves and I were very proud to have our Deputy Public Works Director there, Rosalba, shining the light for all of the other representatives of how we were at 81% and the others were struggling at 82%. I think she did say that's correct. Our others were barely trying to get into the 60s, and we showed them the work we had done on Washington Street, and they were very impressed. And I also so it was also an opportunity for me, and I think the Vice Mayor too, to thank our Deputy Public Works Director for making that excellent presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. We are very proud of Rosalba and appreciate the work that she does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. A motion and a second to adjourn to our regular scheduled meeting on April the 17th. Is that right?
21st.
I think it's
21st. There you
yeah.
go. I thought I'd never
A
forget
lot of
that day. Yeah,
17ths in the past.
yeah, 17th. Not
Let's
going
avoid that date.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
We have a 10 a.m.
To
workshop.
adjourn
At
until
10 a.m.
21st, 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Thank you.
But then we have a regular council meeting that day at 3.
Well, we haven't decided that yet. But,
Oh, undecided. Okay, 10 a.m. It is.
I'll let you know as soon as we
Okay.
sort through it all.
I said
All
it.
right. That's a wrap, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us.
Seconded it.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Eric.
Oh, we didn't vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Unanimous.